Good evening. Tonight is Wednesday, May 6, 2015. Welcome to the Hendrick Hudson Board of Education. Our first order of business is to approve the agenda as presented. That's right. Okay.
So how many years did you have with your
Sorry, I know. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, actually, I messed up more than that. We have a public hearing first on the budget.
For 15 minutes, we have to wait.
We don't have to wait if we have nobody.
Would you like
The summary of the budget, it's a budget, the total budget is $74,407,339. The budget-to-budget increase is 1.4%. Our tax levy is $40,959,972. This is an increase of 0.03% or around $11,000. As of today, the tax rate for the town of Portland is 0.02, and for the city of Peekskill is 0.1%. And I'm saying as of today because the assessed values will change during the next 2 to 3 months. We also have non-tax revenue that includes pilot, state aid. We're moving $450,000 from fund balance for next year and other revenues. This represents $33 million, which is an increase of 3.18%. And our tax cap is $40,960,017. So we are a couple $100 below our tax cap. Here you have the revenues. As you can see, state aid increased 13%, and that represents about $600,000 compared to last year. But this comes with strings attached. We will have to do some work to get the money from the state. If not, it's going to be withheld. BOCES aid is a big increase. We are using BOCES more than ever. That's $952,000. Other income represents interest income from our accounts and other little things from here and there. Sales tax is the taxes that we all pay when we go and buy stuff in Westchester County. Transfers is just a transfer from the cafeteria fund to this fund. Fund balance $450,000, and our big number is pilots at $25 million. So here you have the average house. An average house in our district is valued at $7,700 of assessed value. Then we have a star allowance. In the case of Peekskill, that's $3,480. So they give us a net tax assessed value of $42.20. The tax rate is $468.94. So that will be an increase in the tax bill for the city of Peekskill resident of an average house of $1. In the case of town of Portland will be $3. By law, we have to show our expenses in 3 categories: capital, administration, and instruction. So you have an idea. Instruction, the average in the state of New York is about 72% of the total budget. We are close to 81%. So the administrative budget will decrease 1.2% or $56,000. The capital budget will increase 3.5%. The capital budget includes planned maintenance and our debt payments. And finally, the big one is instructional budget. Instructional budget, as you can see, salary and benefits are going down because TRS went down over $1 million compared to last year. Equipment is going down a little bit, but the rest are going up for a net increase of 1.3%. This is our property tax report card. As you can see, we have the proposed spending at 74 million, like we said, 1.42% increase. Our tax levy, here we divide the tax levy in different portions until we get to the actual tax cap of 40,960,000. Our public enrollment will basically stay the same. The consumer price index is 162, so that would have been the highest tax cap possible. For us, again, it was 0%, and then we have our fund balance that basically will stay the same as last year. We also have a bus proposition. We're proposing to replace 6 student transportation vehicles, 1 72-passenger bus. Those are the expensive ones. Then we have 3 single-wheel 20-passenger vans. Those are the small ones, and 2 Suburbans. We want to replace also facilities vehicles, 1 heavy-duty dump truck, 2 utility vehicles, and also we want to replace our fuel system. For our fuel system, the cost is about $15,000, and that cost will be divided between us and the other parts of the municipality, like the fire department and the Buchanan that uses our pump. This should not exceed $480,000. So thank you. Now we can hear from the president about the budget.
Anybody? Does anybody on the board have any questions or comments?
Wouldn't this be a good time for us to discuss what we talked about, what the discussion about the staffing?
I don't. I think first we should.
We have to close the public hearing
Right.
portion, and then we were going to do the superintendent's report.
Yeah, I think we should discuss it during the public hearing, because it could be a change to this budget.
I don't think there's any change.
There won't be a
to the budget.
change
It won't
to
be
the
a change.
financial, though.
Right, I mean, that's not a
Maybe a little
change to the
detail.
financial, but to the details.
Okay, so let's,
Okay, that's fine.
I think we can do that.
So, Alice, why don't you, what the board has in front of it is a 4-slide overview of our current staffing in elementary schools. As you all well know, we have a lot of movement between usually April and October. And it's oftentimes difficult to project elementary enrollment because we have students moving, we have students coming in, leaving. We have a housing market that all indicators are warning us is going to heat up. Interest rates still remain low, and there's a threat that they'll go up. So I think we're going to see a lot of movement in and around our district and our region. So as we prepare our staffing, our instructional budget presentation was back in early March, and we looked at present enrollment. What you have in front of you is current enrollment, number of kids, number of sections. And what we're going to walk you through over the next couple of minutes are some staffing opportunities we have to perhaps reestablish additional math coaches or to hang on to staffing in case some of our grade levels split. So I'll let Alice walk us through this, and we can discuss how to move forward.
We look at this chart frequently, and I change the numbers constantly.
I'm always bothering the secretary, so what's your number, what's your number? So we've got a situation always at Frenchie Lindsay in kindergarten. For whatever reason in that school, people register really late. That number can double by the time school starts, and it does it every year. Our best guess now is they'll be in 3 sections. Just looking at all the other numbers.
That Frank G.
And Frenchie Lindsay in kindergarten, and we budgeted for the 3 sections, but right now we're at 2. So our second grade, entering second grade at kindergarten at BV is an ICT class, which means you can get kids from all 3 schools, and also the split number is 70. That's I left these numbers for you, and all indications say that we'll be at 4 second grades, and we budgeted for that as well. But right now we're sitting, you can see 13 sections at BV and 18, I'm positive will be 19 at Frank G. Could even be 20. This is close, you can see first grade 64 to 66, and again it's an ICT section. So that's close. And Furnace Woods, I put an asterisk there. It is an IC2 section, but they're 6 away, and that's
What's the ratio in some of those classes? I know you discussed
One
one.
of the ICT classes that had a significant number of,
It was an overstatement early on. The prediction was that there would be 10, 11, 12 ICT kids in that kindergarten. They're sitting at 3 right now.
okay,
So
because the concern was that we would have
you don't want it to get to half of the class.
half.
You really don't. It's not a co-teach class then.
You said you budgeted for some
Budgeted
days,
meaning that, we've got
That-
teachers slotted there.
that you got the teacher slide there
And we have,
in case.
in case.
How many, what are our chances of a non-slotted or non-budgeted? Where's that concern right now?
Well-
Which group is, where's that concern that we may have to take, say, a math?
No,
coach?
this goes into the math. This is all part of
This
the
is all part of
That's all
it.
part of it?
It's all part of,
Yeah.
the consideration. It's not that, we were looking at to stay within our budget and our 2% cap, to only have 1 math coach. But when the class size, when the enrollment's, it's lower. So that gives us a little more wiggle room. It's exactly where we were last year at this time. In that we knew if we didn't split classes, we'd have 3 math coaches. But if we split 1 class, we'd have 2 math coaches.
But that's not that their salaries. If we do reinstate the additional 2 math coaches, that won't
It's all within-
change any part of the budget.
No,
So that's the good
it's,
part.
it's all within
Right.
the amount of teachers that are budgeted, but whether or not, those teachers are in a classroom or in math coaching,
Right.
they have a job.
It's all within the dollar amount Enrique just showed.
Absolutely.
So I
Thank
broke
you.
it down a little further because I thought it would be interesting. So this is our current staffing, 14, 15, and then next year. So what are the unknowns? And there always are unknowns at this time of year. I'm meeting with the one teacher who's on a child care leave. She's coming in tomorrow. So I don't know what she's thinking. No one knows what she's thinking. It's a very big secret. But we'll know by this time tomorrow. And we have one Horizons teacher that's in the elementary line. We've got somewhere between 1, 2, or 3 math coaches. And if nothing splits, we're at 43. If they all split, we're at 47. And that's where we are.
So if things stay the same right now, we'll have the 3 math coaches.
Right.
So what do we have budgeted for? What do we budgeted for?
She just said, whatever was at the beginning is what we had
same.
budgeted.
So
So
we
the
have
15 positions.
We're budgeted for 50.
Right,
We're estimating between 43 and 47.
right. And then our math coaches.
So that would include, okay,
Yeah.
good.
Right, because we're at fewer sections. But you just never know what's going to happen. So Joe asked me to look at our history of class splits. So I went back a few years. It's always that late enrollment in kindergarten at Frank J. every year. We had an anomaly in summer of 2013 that they were splitting every year. You can see it's a lot. First grade is pretty easy to split because the cap is 20 students in first grade.
But last year, we added a teaching assistant because the split was
Well, they
late.
split late, right?
So
Because,
we-
once you're into October, November, you're not going to
Oh,
take
yeah,
up the
no,
class.
you don't want to
It's
break
bad for
it.
everybody.
So we showed this slide to see if there was any trend. And there really isn't.
No.
Last summer, you could say last summer was the anomaly that we didn't have enrollment dictate a split during the summer months. But in 2013, we had a lot of activity. But you see at least a trend of those 3 summers that it's kindergarten. It's late enrollment at kindergarten. And despite our efforts and trying to do the kindergarten roundup and meet with the preschools and all of those efforts, you sometimes have kids showing up when the bus rolls by, and you have parents realize, oh, it's school time. So what we have is some evidence of declining enrollment for the last slide.
This is kind of horrifying, I think. If you look at our 3 elementary schools, 2010-11, you can see where we were. When I got here, there were 18 sections in BV and for Lids. It was 3 deep school, 3 sections in each grade level. And you can see what happened. And we're projected at BV, probably be 14 because that first grade is so close. And Furnace Woods probably will be at 12 again because their kindergarten is far enough away to not think it's going to get there.
This is a national demographic.
Of course. Yeah. It's
So-
nothing personal to Ed HUD.
So what we have is we have budgeted yet unassigned staff.
How many?
We have 4. We have 4 budgeted and unassigned staff. One, if you
One
can-
is this child lead person.
One is the child lead person. And going back to the first slide, it is likely that second grade at BV would split. So then we're down to 3 vacancies for 3 other asterisks.
And the one thing we have to keep in mind is how we're going to meet the demands of ESL. How we're going to meet that mandate without
Right.
more staff. Because it's not easy. And the districts with larger ESL populations are having an easier time because they have the staff. But when we have 1 first grader and 1 second grader and 1 third grader in a school, and you have a push-in piece, that becomes pretty tricky.
So, in a way, with the staffing pattern, we're where we were 12 months ago, where we had our budget set, we had no layoffs, but because of these patterns and how they shift, a year ago we had 3 budgeted yet unassigned elementary teachers. And given a lot of the issues at the state level of implementing the Common Core, we don't need to rehash all of those implementation issues that we were faced with. We said that we were going to staff 1 math coach in each of our 3 elementary schools, with the caveat that if a grade level split within that school, that math coach would assume the classroom responsibility, and the remaining math coaches would split their time. So it wouldn't, for example, Frank G is a theme of a school who is split. If we had a math coach at Frank G and they split, they would receive math support from the other 2 schools, not that they would lose it altogether and the other 2 schools would keep it. We would create a schedule to make sure kids receive support and teachers receive staff development. So as we're 2 weeks away from our budget vote, and certainly we have heard both in board meetings and also other budget forums, the urgency and the interest in math coaches, we could say with confidence that we would have math coaches at the elementary schools, but with the caveat that if grade levels split, that assignment would go to handle the split, and we would redistribute math support with the other coaches.
But it looks like there's a very good likelihood this year that will happen.
Particularly
So
at BV.
my concern is, we've heard parents come before us, we've heard PTA, the importance of the math specialists and what they've done to help the kids. There's no other place we can find money in our budget to define,
sure we
to
have
make sure
3.
that even if there is a split, we have the 3. I just don't understand why, but to me, the emphasis should be on the education and the deficiencies that we're seeing that we may have as a district, and what we've heard from the parents, there's got to be ways, there's got to be money we could find. And that's, again, some of us voted for the dollar amount because that's what it is, but myself personally, I will not be able to vote for a budget where we're not putting the children first, where we worry about, people worry more about their salaries than, what we have. I don't know. I'm gonna
Salaries
go by
are
thinking.
contractual.
I know they're contractual, but,
That's not.
but there's other things too that we can be cutting.
Well, we may see cuts throughout the year. We may be able to see savings. But right now, I don't think we can, I don't know.
I think at every meet and greet, and Carson and I have been at quite a few together, but almost all of the parents that come out, that's a major issue.
We've heard it here.
When Charles and I attend PTA meetings, in the elementary schools, that's a major issue that parents talk about. So there's a very strong desire in the community for math specialists to stay in, the present schools that they're already in and to keep things the way that they are. So I definitely feel strongly about
Lori,
that.
doing the math, we talk about this all the time, the way the math has changed so much over the last 8 years, 6 years since I've been on the board. But now there's a bigger emphasis being put on it now. We're giving the kids less and expecting them to do more, and I don't just know if that's going to be enough to give these kids the tools that they need to go on. So again, I would implore, I would ask that we look to cut deeper, go to all the schools, ask where we can find $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, and look to make those hard choices of those luxury things. And I'm not going to say luxury, but things that we could do without in order to keep. I know, Lori, that there's got to be some fat someplace. I know we've cut a lot over the years,
So much.
but to affect the children, especially now with the rigor that's being put on them, I just, we've heard it from the community, and the community is expecting us to try to keep this in place. So that's all. I get on my soapbox, I do what I am, I say what I am to say.
What are our projections? Are we about at the end of the enrollment slide, or are we?
No,
No.
live births are low going forward. Next year, our class size used to be 200 about in a class. Jazz, I'm sure your class is 2-something.
221.
Yep. This year's fifth grade is about 190. Next year's fifth grade is, if I do this fast, that's about 150, 155. And that's the bigger class.
Well, one of the things I
But what,
say,
enrolling, what is
For live
we
birth-
used to get a projection every year or every other year
The
of
demographics.
enrollments, of
Live births.
live births and projections. And, where are we looking to go? Are we going to keep dropping? Because we've dropped between 14 and 10 sections over the last 5 years in the elementary schools, just from these numbers. So depending on how many we have, if we have 48 this year, we'll have 10. I thought we got into the 150, 160 range, and then it was pretty solid looking.
But at that range,
Yes.
it's not going back to 200.
No, that's
Unless
what I'm
houses
saying.
sell.
We are about reaching a point of stability of enrollment, but it's significantly lower than it used to be. It's two deep schools.
So we want to know if it's going to be a steady
It's
155.
lower, but it's stable.
That's what we need to know, if it's a steady 155. Because if we're holding on to teachers,
Well, our first grade is 20 kids lower than our fifth grade.
well, I think
there's
this-
some variation, there's some volatility in each class,
Right.
but
I also think what this illustration shows is we're going to have to start thinking long and hard if we want to preserve some of these services for the kids, is changing some of the boundaries within the district and changing some of what kids go to schools that happened years before. Because if you look at Furnace Woods and you could Furnace Woods, Frank G. Lindsay, and BV, if we, like on that second grade class where it is, if we change some, and again, that would have to be done by, you would have to do an analysis, but we may be able to stay within it where we don't have to split by moving, changing like on Washington Street, you know what I'm
Carson,
saying?
I was going to say the same thing. I thought we needed to close like the budget part first and then talk about that. And I was going to bring up that ugly I love elephants. To bring up the elephant in the room that You know, just like that busing brought crowds out, that maybe we need to look at, you're right, Washington used to go to Furnace Woods.
Yeah.
Well,
So
not
maybe we
all.
need,
Some areas,
not all,
but some,
right.
Half
but
of
look
it.
at it and see
Perhaps
what
we
we
need
have.
to look at an
Yeah.
aerial view of,
The whole district and
Changing
see.
some
But
boundaries.
and look at the-
Washington Street definitely, because I know from my house where we were impacted.
right,
Yeah.
But-
Harrison Court,
My
right
house,
over there.
My house is
Yeah.
Furnace Woods, bottom of my driveway was BB.
Right.
That's pretty funny. So you went with your driveway.
Yeah,
Yeah.
where the bus will pick you up.
I have one driveway that's BV, one driveway that's Furnace Woods, but my one driveway is BV. Not Furnace Woods, Frank G. So I have, my kids, all their friends were
Right.
right next, all the next door neighbors, Frank G, and my kids were the ones that went to BV. But no problem, they had great experience. But I think, Lori, I think we have to look at that.
Absolutely.
I mean, because that would save us the
Let me say
splitting.
first.
And we can look at it from a global perspective, than just looking at it per school and splitting. We should be able to look at it as a district. And I know there's people that would like us to say that because they think their property values are affected by the district, the kids, the school the kids go to. But I think it's something we have to look at.
I think that's something
I agree.
for another board meeting.
But it's something that has to be done so we can try to preserve what we have.
Especially when the numbers have been presented, and it's kind of right in your face saying, well,
Yes.
that's kind of obvious.
And I think we've talked about this and we've discussed it, and as I said, I think it's something for a future board meeting.
But before we lose the services.
Right now for the budget.
Right, that's what I thought we had to do first.
Yeah, that's what we have to do first. So,
That's what I didn't say.
I mean, I think right now we do have the 3 math specialists in the budget, which
And I
is good
think
news.
that's the most
That's good
important
news.
thing.
And we have to have, I think, quite a few students, 6 students, is it? To have to move into most of the grades to make a change. So I think, no, not the
Right.
second grade, but,
Right.
it's,
Some of the K.
yeah, I think, so right now, it's good that we have the math specialist in the budget, and then we'll have to see.
So do we want to move forward tentatively assigning? We have one math specialist in the budget. We want to move forward assigning one in each building with the caveat that if we get to a point where we have a number of splits, the last resort will be having the math specialist in that building become a classroom teacher, and then we would reallocate math support with the remaining coaches among the 3 schools.
Yes.
Actually, can you do that within the contract? Because when you split, you have to post it, and then how does it?
There's always posting. It doesn't happen.
So it might not be the
Place.
math specialist in that building that gets that posted.
That's right, that's true. That's right. And then also you look at seniority.
But in terms of allocating the additional position.
Yeah.
And the math specialist it's not for every elementary teacher. You have to have a love of mathematics and proclivity. And that's not everyone's first choice.
And the ones that we currently have in place are outstanding.
Well, they're outstanding, but none of them are happy with the uncertainty.
Mhm.
Right.
And some are less happy than others. And some would very much like to go back to a stable classroom and not have to worry every year, will I be doing this, will I not? So you're not going to see the same math specialist.
And others are interested. So as much as some, as Al said, would like, more stability.
And let's remember, we've got to take care of the CSL situation.
And AIS.
So
Maybe there's
So-
also, we've kind of talked about this before, that maybe we look at a different type of scheduling for our younger grades, where if they are math specialists and supposedly stronger in math, that we look at maybe departmentalizing maybe a little bit younger. So if we're just throwing it out there, don't have to, but if we look at the fourth grade at Furnace Woods, and we take, instead of every teacher teaching math, maybe the strongest teacher teaches all the kids math. Sometimes elementary
been done
school,
in
sometimes
French,
elementary school teachers have math anxiety. They do. Some of them do. So when you ask them to teach math, and never mind this Common Core nonsense, then it even gives more. So maybe we could look at that if they have to become classroom teachers, then have a 5th grade math teacher, a 4th grade math teacher, a possibility.
Is there a difference between our buildings? Because at one time, Frank G.
there is a difference.
They
There's
still are.
shuttled
They
kids to
still,
math
I
and
believe,
and
are
design.
they still doing it?
In our 3 elementary schools, we've got Furnace Woods They mix up the kids for math, but they don't really departmentalize. They just think the kids should move a little in 5th grade before they go to the middle school.
Right.
In
All 3 fifth graders,
But-
5th grade teachers teach math.
well, there are 2 now.
2, right.
At first was in Frenchy Lindsay, where there are 4 sections. They team in 2 teams. So one team, one of the teachers teaches math and science to both classes, and the other teacher teaches English and social studies. And you wouldn't want elementary students to be too departmentalized because they
Right.
still need that home base.
Right.
But anyway, that's what they do at Frenchy Lindsay and have had for many years. And this year at BV, because of the various strengths of various teachers, one teacher teaches math, one teacher teaches writing and science. It's an interesting combination, but these are things she loves, and the other teaches
Writing
really
and
the
social
ELA
studies.
social studies. But the writing with a Common Core, there's less time for writing than there used to be, and we're taking it very seriously.
There's less time for a lot of stuff.
Right. But that's what they're doing at BV this year. Next year, they're going to be 2 deep at BV. So there'll be a math science person and ELA social studies person.
Can you talk a little bit about the staffing issues with DSL, how the new regulations have changed that?
Sure.
I think we need to get on with the budget hearing though, because,
That's part of the budget.
well, it is, but, all right, but,
Yeah, but we're going to approve this, and that's why I was holding back too. I thought we had to like get the budget finished with, and then we can bring up, because the budget is what it is. Am I correct? The budget is what it is.
right.
Budget has been approved.
Correct.
And so is budget.
So we should close that.
I mean, let's ask the question later. I'm not saying we want to.
Don't ask it, but after we do.
Yeah, let's just, yeah, good for the budget hearing.
Don't drop your pen.
Anything else? We'll do, but after we do this.
We gotta
So what else do
we gotta get our
can-
agenda in order still.
Do you need us to make a motion?
No, I haven't even started yet. I just want to make sure everybody has gotten out everything that they want to say.
Well, we have voted on the budget already, so we don't have to vote
That
on
was
it.
just
Okay, this
hearing.
closes the hearing.
It's just closing
Okay,
the hearing
thank
and
you.
the budget's
Thank
out
Thank
to
you,
the public.
thank you, everybody for your input. Now, can I please have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Does
Second.
anybody want to pull anything from the consent agenda? Then can I please have a motion to approve the items on the consent agenda?
So
So,
moved.
second.
Thank you.
All those.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. Now we have to go to donations. Okay, our first donation is $3,000 for Furnace Woods Elementary School, and thank you for that. Second one is from Frenchy Lindsay School for their box tops.
That's wonderful.
Extraordinary amount of money.
That's a lot of cereal there.
Right. Well, it's very good that parents really bring
Bring the
in
box tops in.
all of these box tops, because I know,
That's a big
Oh, they're
you know,
doing it.
all
Good for
the
them.
elementary schools have been profiting from box tops for education.
That's
So
great.
that's great. And the third one is the Educational Foundation has donated for middle school technology class, and we appreciate that, and we thank you very much, Educational Foundation, for their donation to the middle school. Thank you. Can I please have a motion to approve the donations?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank
Very
you.
good.
Thank you. Okay, now we're up to our hearing from the public on non-agenda items. Does anybody wish to speak? Thank you. Could you please come up and state your name?
Over here.
Yes, thank you.
My name is Mike Colella. First, I just want to thank all the people that volunteer after sitting here and listening to you guys. Just thank you for your service. My name is Mike Colella. I'm the father of a 17-year-old senior at the high school. He has been in school district since kindergarten, never in trouble, always respectful, and always have had good responses from teachers. He has made great achievements for a student with ADHD due to his teachers. Our son was suspended from school on February 7th for a serious incident for 2 months by the superintendent. The reason I am approaching you now is that I missed the last meeting because it was rescheduled, and I did not realize until March 1st that our son's suspension might affect his senior year on the tennis team. We also missed out on the appeal process, and by the time it came around, again, our son's suspension would have been over. I would like to bring to your attention 2 issues. One is the decision at the manifestation hearing, since our son has had a 504 plan in place since kindergarten, and the decision by the superintendent to suspend our son for 8 weeks. Our son was diagnosed at NYU Medical Center when he was in kindergarten and has been involved with many psychologists over the past 12 years. Regarding the best treatment for our son, I can tell you on a personal basis that a student or child with ADHD has many issues. Symptoms such as inattention, impulsivity, hyperactivity. It also affects children's relationships with their peers. The difficulties with socialization are often directly related to poor choice in relationships with peers. This is true of my son and many other students in this district who have been such diagnosed. Children with ADHD are easily led into inappropriate behavior and also their struggles with socialization. We met with Ms. Rufflick, Ms. Downey, and Ms. Dr. Lupiana at the manifestation hearing. Within 15 minutes, they decided that our son's act was not influenced at all by his ADHD diagnosis. I called Ms. Rufflick after the severe suspension was handed down. We spoke for an hour debating the issue of the effects of ADHD. Our son is a follower and not a leader. We believe he was trying to fit in a bad crowd, which happened to be in 8th period in art class, which is the only class he goes to at Hen Hut. He goes to BOCES for microcomputer technology class where he thrives. The following is a part of an email response from this art teacher when we asked about how our son was doing. I want to also point out that my art class with him is during 8th period when students are traditionally flagging a bit. That is a large class completely full, and he has many friends in it. Students do find art to be a bit of a stress relief area, especially at the end of the day. Personally, since our education mandates have turned to such much testing, I found that students need to be even more relief than ever. My 8th and 9th period students always appear to need a bit of space, so to speak out, than the students I served earlier on. So there are some extenuating conditions that I believe make it more difficult for your son to concentrate when I have him at this time of the day. If it was determined at the manifestation hearing that his disability affected his decision to hang out with certain students to fit in, and the decision he made to partake with another student in his suspension would have been lessened. Was this the correct decision? Did the classroom he was in have any effect on his choice? The next issue is the superintendent's decision to suspend our son for 10 weeks or 8 weeks. Under the student suspension and due process procedure, it states the following under length of student suspension. There is no prescribed limit placed upon the number of days a student may be suspended from school. The more severe the disciplinary circumstances, the greater the length of suspension. The individual circumstances of each disciplinary hearing, including but not limited to the discipline record of the student, guide the superintendent in determining the length of the suspension. Basically, the superintendent determines the suspension on his own. We believe our son's case was never looked at on an individual basis. A student never in trouble, good character, always respectful, one-time honor student, played in the band, played JV soccer, never played football, and was added on as the kicker his senior year, and also varsity tennis. Every time we approached the superintendent to reduce his suspension, his response was always the same. All students in your son's situation receive the same, if not more, of a suspension. My son is not all students. Is it not every circumstance different? Should it be looked at very closely on an individual basis? First time offense, who initiated the act, why didn't the student partake, peer pressure, trying to fit into a bad crowd, and again back to the class, our class. Our son was an average or athlete, but strived in tennis since 9th grade, becoming starting doubles player his sophomore year and starting third singles last year, and also received all league honors last year. We did not realize that my son's senior year tennis career was in jeopardy until I spoke with Coach Fredman and Mr. Baker 2 weeks before the start of the season, being in March 1st. The way it works with tennis is any athlete must have 8 practices before they're able to play in a game. Practices started March 9th and the season's March 20th. The way tennis is set up, I was told that by the time our son's suspension is over on April 7th, more than half the season would be over and too late to get a starting spot. As soon as I told this, I met with the superintendent and explained the situation. And on March 16th, he wrote back to me, I may have an opportunity to be creative with your son's suspension. Give me a call Tuesday in my office and we can discuss. There was nothing accomplished. But in the superintendent's defense, there was a loss in his family, and indeed he had to be with them, which is completely understandable, but time was lost. I again spoke with the superintendent, Coach Fredman, and Mr. Baker, since I received no answer. The only possible solution was that we were hoping he would join the team during the break on March 30th, since Mr. Fredman might have practiced that week, and only if all agreed. Our son met with Mr. Fredman on Tuesday, March 7th, and he was told to meet with him and Mr. Baker the next day. On Wednesday, they all met, and our son was told it would be best if he not join the team, which I knew all along would happen, which is why I was so desperate to make something happen in March. There was no remorse at any time by the superintendent. Our son was part of a terrible act in school and was also punished at home. And he was sorry for what he did. Is this not enough? Nothing can be done now regarding my son. I'm telling you this to bring to your attention an issue regarding how suspensions are handed down. A student should not automatically be suspended for 2 months without a full investigation of circumstance, not just placed, I'm calling it an incident category. With all this, after being here just now, with all you guys have to do, especially the superintendent, with all the superintendent has on his plate to accomplish for the school district, do you believe he has time to decide the length of suspension for a student on an individual basis? Why can't there be a committee set up with the teachers that know the students and that report to the superintendent? There has to be a better way. This has all passed now for all of you, but it will be on my mind and our family's mind, on our son's mind for a very long time. Maybe you can do something in the future so this doesn't happen again to another student. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys have a great night.
Thank you.
Okay, report from our superintendent.
Couple updates. This is the season of graduations, and they began with their graduations. Last week was Frank G. This morning was Buchanan Verplank, and next week, or I believe this Friday actually, is Furnace Woods. This is also the season for inducting students to all things Honor Society at our high school and our middle school. So if you have the opportunity to attend National Honor Society or the art show, the AP art show is scheduled in early June. Those are some great events. Spring concerts are in full swing. Last night was the middle school concert. 2 weeks ago, the high school, and there are a couple more scheduled. And lastly, I reported a couple weeks ago, Hen Hud Live is now in the process of handing out money. They have officially cut checks of $1,500 to all 6 of our PTAs for the PTAs to use at their discretion. And we're meeting next week to finalize some quotes for some upgrades in the middle school auditorium. Risers, lighting, and new curtains. So hopefully before the end of June, we'll have an idea of what will be upgraded and to the degree and the timeline. So the hope is that next year's 6th graders will have a completely different experience and will feel or be part of a newer, brighter, more comfortable environment, especially for those who were at the concert last night. An upgrade would be nice. So with that, I'll turn it back over to the Madam President.
Vice President.
Tonight President. Acting.
Could I just know one detail about the Blue Mountain Middle School concert last night? Because it was my last middle school concert for my son and my last ever. But at the end of the concert, but at the end of the concert, Mr. Stamboni, who's retiring from the district after years of service, was invited up and got to conduct one of the last songs. And he had some high school students come in who were actually able to play and attest to his influence he'd had on them. And it was really nice, not only for the parents to hear, but for the students there, the 8th graders and 7th graders, to hear, what's going to happen in band for them in high school. So it was a really nice tribute, and a nice thing to watch that shows the, kind of the people in our district who dedicated a lot of time and influenced a lot of students. So it was kind of like Mr. Holland's opus. That's cool.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. All right, we're now to committee reports. Anybody?
I would seem to go.
You seem to have the most committees to talk about.
I just wanted to discuss quickly Regional Education Advocacy District. When we were here last, I talked about the shared services and cost efficiencies plan, or advocacy that we're doing through that. And we've got to mention in the front page story in the April 28th paper about the tax cap rebates that schools are writing plans for. We're on track to make ours. And essentially, if schools don't submit a efficiency plan saying that you're going to save 1% from 2012 budget, taxpayers don't get their tax cap, their tax rebate. So, schools are scrambling to meet this because they're very difficult regulations and very unclear regulations. And so, everybody's doing it. So we got an article in the paper about how to advocating for clearer regulations and to relax some of the requirements so that it'd be easier to get and could go back further years. Because in my opinion, the underlying feeling is that everybody says school districts don't cooperate and they don't try to work together and they don't try to share services and these kind of things, but we actually have been for a long time. They've documented over 135 shared services that Reed schools do. The other committee, Barbara and I went to BVPTA, and they do a great thing. They do a showcase in 30 minutes before the PTA program. And we went in and sat with a first grade or kindergarten class? First grade class doing tanagrams. And that was so fun to watch the kids teach their parents how to do it.
You actually learned something.
I did too. It was a lot
I
of
know,
fun.
you had a good time.
And the good thing, we were talking about the donations that we made. BV this year had a very good year in fundraising. They worked really hard. They got a lot of money together, and they're trying to figure out how to spend it. I think they're going to be coming to Enrique and Anthony about different plans. They had actually a good windfall. So they have some very interesting plans about how to upgrade the facilities. And they have new officers going in the next year. And then Josh did a really great little program to thank the outgoing officers. He interviewed each one of them's children about what they noticed, what their parents did at the school in volunteering, what they learned from that, and then
What they want to tell their parents.
what they want to tell their parents. And it was really heartwarming, to sit and watch it. But it was a way for the kids to thank their
Yes,
parents.
absolutely.
It was very nice.
sweet. It was really touching.
And then Finance and Facilities Committees met last week. We'll talk about that later on.
Anybody else? Okay. We have our second audience comments.
I'm good Wednesday.
Okay. Now we're up to our solar panel project presentation.
Charles alluded to Finance Committee and Facilities. We wanted to bring back to the full board a presentation on the proposal to work with Siemens on a solar project, some startup money from NYPA to encourage a different type of energy conservation. We'd like to update you on the project, and then if you support it, we'd like you to pass the resolution so we can engage in the project with Siemens and meet some timelines that would help us achieve some upgrades and some work over the summer. So with that, I'll turn it over to
Thank you.
Enrique.
The key components of the PPA meaning purchase power agreement, is that we have 5 agreements, one per school. Originally, it was going to be one for the whole district, but we decided to go one for each building, just in case something happens in one building, the whole thing doesn't go bad. It's a 20-year agreement. We have an option until June 10 to decide on who will pay for the roof work for BB and the high school. If you remember, originally the idea was that we didn't have money. They were going to, the Siemens, when I say they, Siemens was going to fix 2 of the roofs, and they were going to charge us at a higher rate so they can fix the roofs. Since then, we've been talking to our engineers for the capital project, and we've seen that we're going to have substantial savings, and we may have enough money to us fix the roofs ourselves and therefore get a lower rate. If we fix our roofs ourselves, the kilowatt hour rate will be the first year 11.5 kilowatt per kilowatt hour with an escalation of 2.5. If they do the roof, it will be 14.6 with an escalation of 2.2. Another key component of the PPA is the terminal value. So if for some reason at one point we decided not to go through in the middle or to close one of the buildings and to get rid of the panels, we will have to pay a termination value.
You know, Enrique, I think you mentioned
Finance, that one of the reasons why you want to have a good roof underneath this is that, what was it, 60 or 66% of the project is
66% of the cost of the project is labor, is putting the panels up. 40% is the cost of the panels. So let's say that one roof in 7 years it goes bad because we didn't do anything with it. We will have to take away all the panels, fix the roof and put them back. That will be very costly. Access to the system. Remember, the system is going to be owned by Siemens. They own it and they have to maintain it. And they can only, when students are in session, they have to ask permission to fix it. If students are not in session, then they only have to let us know that they will go up to the roofs.
And their employees have to have the same.
The employees will have to be fingerprinted by BOCES. Public press releases, we need mutual approval, and any future grants or awards will be shared with Siemens 50-50. So in the purchase power agreement, everything that is produced by these solar panels, we have to buy that electricity. So what happens in the summer when there's more production than what we need, that's why we have a net metering agreement, which means that all the meters go clockwise, they will go counterclockwise, and then which means is that we're selling the power to the grid, and the next month we will get a rebate from NYPA. We both have to carry liability and workers' compensation insurance, and then at the end of the agreement in 20 years, we can decide to either buy the system or just tell Siemens, get it out of our roofs because there's either a better system or because we didn't like it. Siemens owns an NYSERDA incentive. The reason why this project is economically feasible is because we are getting $606,000 from NYSERDA to build the system. They own the NYSERDA incentive, but if they decide not to go through the process, then they'll transfer it to us.
And that
Incentive is split among the 5 PPAs.
Yes, the total for the 5 is 606,000. So you can get an idea. The total production per year is going to be about 927,000 kilowatt hours, which represents about 45% of our power needs today.
do we use it?
I never asked this question yet. Do we use the power at the source? I mean, in other words, it's produced on the building, we use that, it's not transmitted or distributed.
It's at the source,
Okay.
yes. In the case that, for example, BV produces more than they need, that meter will go the other way around, and that particular excess will be sold and come back for us the following month. Every building is a standalone basis in the agreement. Together with the agreement, we have a license. We have a license agreement. So basically, we cannot lease anything as a school district. We cannot lease a roof. So this is a change that we made. Instead of leasing them for $1 a year, each of our roofs, we have a license agreement. So the license agreement goes together with a purchase agreement for the 20 years. So one day we decide to tell them, we don't want to lease the roof for you, so go out. So it's basically the idea that to protect them that we are doing this license agreement. So what's the economics of the project? As you can see in the upper graph, that was a kilowatt hour per month last year. You can see it goes from about 11 cents to 28 cents, which is very difficult to budget. And that's because Con Edison needs to make on a monthly basis a yield on their investment. So last year, if you remember, there was a shortage of natural gas. So they had to buy the natural gas at a very expensive rate. They still have to make 7-8% the return that they agree with the government. And that's why in the month of March, our electricity costs more than double. So what is important here is that for 40% of our electricity needs, we are going to have a stable rate that we will know way in advance. We'll know it today. In the one below, you can see hypothetical, if we have done this 9 years ago, compared to the increases that we had over the 9 years, compared to the increase that we would have in the solar, with the solar panels, you can see that over 9 years it's going to be 20% compared to about 60% that was the increase over the last 9 years. Some of you were very concerned about the break-even point. When is it that our NYPA rates will be less than our solar panel rates? And in the graph on the top, you can see, based on today's rate, the highest of last year, that was 16.8, the average, I'm sorry, not the highest, the average. It will take us about 12 years to match that rate if the NYPA rates don't go up 1 cent.
Yeah.
So we keep the NYPA rate as of today's rate. In the case that they repair the roofs at a cost of $447,000, then the rate will start at 14.6, and it will take 6 years for the rates to match. Again, that's with the assumption that the NYPA rate stays as the average of last year. Here I'm just giving you an idea of the historical kilowatt rate so you can get an idea the volatility of them. First, you have from 2005-06 to 13-14. Then you have the average of 13-14, that was 17.4, and the average of the last 12 months as of March, that was 16.8. So the questions that we will have to, the decisions that we will have to make by June 10th is the following. The Vivian High School, the cost of the roof is estimated to be $447,000. We have two alternatives. Do it under the existing capital project because we have some savings and issue a bond at approximately 3.5%, and that will bring total payments of $629,000. Or increase the cost per kilowatt hour, let them pay, and under the difference between the no roof and the roof will be $631,000 in payments, meaning that basically Siemens is charging us the same 3.5% that we will go out to the market to borrow the money for the roofs. So in that sense, financially it makes no difference. It makes a difference of $2,000 over 20 years.
If we finance it ourselves, what's the chance that that rate would go up before we
Again, I expect to do the bond of the whole project in November, December. I don't think interest rates will move very much between now and December. The next point that I want to mention is the risks of the project. It's important that all of you know that we're the first ones in Westchester, Rockland, in the Long Island that we're doing a solar panel. So there's very few comparisons in the state with similar attributes than us: geography, roof installation, size, etc. The price of solar panels may continue to decrease substantially, and here what I want to show you all how from 2007 to today, how much the actual solar panel decrease in cost. The other risk that we have is that there's no economies of scale. We're doing it alone. Meanwhile, the government has a program called K-Solar that is trying to get many school districts together to do a solar project with one contractor. The other one, like I said, is that NYPA rates may decrease substantially. Now, the risk not to do it is that we lose our $604,000. Those grants no longer exist, and the federal grants that they are still available will decrease from 30% to 10%. So we've been working very hard with Keenan Bean, with Siemens, since October of last year, and we're very excited because we think this is a great project. We'll save money, we'll be green, and together with this project, Siemens is going to work with Jim Macken and the STEM people to have a curriculum for STEM.
think it was what, $15,000 they put in that PPA, in the high school PPA for the STEM project, our program.
Staff development resources. So,
New York State's goal for renewable resource energy production is 30%, and they're 23% now. That's one of the reasons why this grant is out there, I think, was trying to stimulate that growth.
so
Can you explain again why we have 5 different PPAs?
Sure. We decided to do 5 different PPAs, so each building is a standalone basis. Let's say for one of the reasons why we did it was by thinking, if the student population decreases substantially, we might decide to close an elementary school and sell it. So if we do that and the new buyers say, I don't want these panels, then we default only in that particular building rather than in the whole district. Similarly, if there's another Sandy that destroys one of the roofs, exactly the same. We don't default in district-wide. We do it only in that building. It protects us and it protects them. And I think that our lawyers also very much prefer that. Legal.
And if we're overproducing more power than we need, can we shut down?
No,
ourselves?
you don't shut down. Net metering.
Okay.
What
We
happens, and that will happen for sure,
Right.
because in the summer, as you can
That's what we're
imagine,
hoping, yeah.
that's when.
Exactly.
But what happens is, if you look at any meter, it goes this way. When you are selling power to the grid, it goes that way.
Right.
So the next month, instead of me starting here to go this way, I'm starting here to go this way.
Okay.
We have to buy every kilowatt produced. We have to buy every kilowatt produced by this, no matter if it's above projections or below projections.
Absolutely everyone. But again, if we don't need it, we have an agreement with NYPA to sell it at the price at the time. And as you can imagine, the summer is when we produce more and
we're
they
using
need more.
Right. And do we have storage systems for during the colder months?
No.
No? Okay.
No, that's why it's the net meter.
Gotcha. Just month by month.
The storage was so expensive.
Okay.
So, the next item, if
Can
we're,
I ask you a question?
oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
Are there any comparisons in other states with similar, with even commercial buildings? I know you said there would be comparisons in this state. with similar
The
others.
only comparison that I know is Marion School District up in
Outside of Syracuse.
outside
Oh, okay. Well,
to
that's the same.
Syracuse. But the big difference is that that's not in the roofs. It's in the in
Ground.
fields.
Right, in fields.
So that's a lot cheaper because you don't have to move everything up. So their price was a little bit lower than us. That's the only one. I called SED, I called everyone, I just called my business official, and he was the only one that is ahead of us, that I think they are finishing by now the whole system, and they either are starting to produce soon or started in the last couple of months. But that's the only one I knew, that I know. And again, it's very difficult to go to other states because all this made sense because of the NYSERDA grant, that it's New York State grant. So who knows what California? I'm sure California has their own grants, but very difficult to compare.
It's also kind of a tipping point in the market too, overall, because overseas geared up to produce these panels, and they kind of got to a point where the cost of the panels was dropped very low, and then other countries Germany in particular was investing heavily, and so their excess capacity in the market, in the production market a little bit, so the price came down. That's why Siemens can do this now.
And then this is, I know nobody can answer this, but with whether the rates are going to increase or decrease. But it seems to me the demand obviously is kind of increasing in New York. And seems, what is the trend? The trend in the past years is it's been,
It's here,
been
the
there.
trend is here.
Yeah, so the trend was there.
I'm sorry, here. You see, it's difficult to see, but 0506, I'm sorry, here. 0506 was 10.5 cents, 0607, 12 then
Certainly going up.
22.
It's going, it seems more likely to go up given the increased demand and lack of
I
source.
sent a link to the annual energy outlook that was produced, and they did a reference. They looked at 6 different possibilities. In the reference case, the price of energy was going up by 2.4%. And I looked again, and I think it's hard when you look from the different charts to the different charts, whether it's production or retail, but it looks as if it's the retail price is going to average 2.4 increase, or what they forecasted over the next until 2040. So almost all of the cases were pretty close to our 2.5% if we do the lower one. I mean, they range, their annual growth projections were 2.2, 2.3, 2.8. The only really different one was if there's a lot of gas and oil out there, or if there's very high oil prices or low economic growth. So,
And also, I mean, even if Indian Point stays open for the long term, their capacity has to shrink. So there's nowhere where they can bring today that kind of lost capacity from upstate. So I'll say it would be very difficult. No one knows, but my feeling is that if we look at the past and we look at the future, power is power, and we need more than less.
the thing that I was, the future is unknown and unknowable, and we really can't know what's out there. But looking at the outlook, annual outlook, energy outlook, they talked about 2 factors coming into play. One is that the growth of energy consumption has slowed down considerably, partially because people are buying, not solar, but they're buying more energy efficient air conditionings and electrical things, and so that's slowed down the rate of growth considerably. And there's the other places where production is coming down is coal. There's coal plants are dropping off the grid and are going to drop off the grid. And natural gas is going to pick up that slack, but natural gas is the most expensive generator of electricity. So those are the 2 factors there. And New York State has the 4th highest energy rates, and they use the most. They use about 30%. They are higher. They use more than the national average of natural gas to produce electricity.
And that's only on the production side. On the distribution side, it's very different.
Okay, anybody else? Are we approving this tonight? Yes.
Well, I
Next.
need a motion to approve a resolution between the Hendrick Hudson Central School District and Siemens Industries.
Conservation, that's why we don't have to produce as much.
Anybody? Charles? Second?
Do you want to? I think it's innovative. I think I mean, there's a disadvantage of being a leader, but I think it's it seems like there's a lot of research done, and I can support this.
Okay.
But there's a risk too. So it's,
Right, there is a risk.
Yeah, there's that. But I think it's
Well, can I
fantastic.
have a vote then, please?
And we still haven't decided which way we're going with the...
Roof, with the roof.
We are going to have a facilities meeting before the first board meeting in June to discuss it, and then the facilities committee can present it to the rest of the board and make the decision. That will not have to be a board resolution, just has to be a decision.
Let me ask you a question. Obviously, I know the quorum. Wouldn't it be more advantageous to have facilities and finance discuss this?
We can, because then it has to be a board.
No, okay, that's what I'm saying, but it would be,
Sure,
I
that's
mean-
what we tried to do last Tuesday,
We just couldn't get
but
everyone.
we couldn't,
We'd have to stagger the
we
meetings.
have to
okay,
start.
just because,
Yeah.
my big hang-up is the numbers. I'm all for agreeing. I contacted Nikki 5 years ago, but again, the numbers are a big thing, especially when we're looking at budgetary constraints now. It's going to cost us more money. In the long run, we're looking to save money and looking to save programs. So
Right.
that's my only reservation I have with it, is because the break-even point right there, and it's going to end up costing us more money after 6 years, 7 years, if we do it one way versus the other. So we'll talk about that June 10th.
Yeah, we'll talk about that, but really, you cannot, this will not affect that part of the general fund, because either it will come from a capital project or will come from,
And I'm also talking about the increase in expenses. We talked about that break-even at that point.
yes.
So that's fine. We can, I'm all for the project. I just don't want to see where it's going to become cost us more.
And by the
than what
way,
we're
with this-
traditionally used to doing.
We discussed that in finance, and there was really no decision because both sides have the pros and cons. So even I'm not sure what to recommend.
And that's
because both
where I am. But the project is very viable, and it's something we need.
And you are like, Charles was like that, Mary Pat was like that, Joe is like that.
Lori's like that. Lori and I.
Yeah.
That's our resolution.
We were squarely on the fence.
The discussion in finance was about transparency. That if we do the roof repairs, then we're comparing rate to rate, apples to apples. When we look at going out in the future, it's all looking at the same thing. And we're paying for the roof out of money that we have, so that was kind of our discussion.
That's what we've talked about in the facilities.
Mhm.
All right, so go ahead, Madam President.
But the resolution that we make now means that we're binding ourselves to go into the PPAs and then
On the license.
in the license, site
Well,
license.
yes, and we had
The
approval
roof is gonna
of the
be-
resolution, now we have to vote. All in favor?
So moved.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
Thank you, Enrique.
Thank you, Enrique.
And thank you to everybody who's worked diligently on this.
Exciting, yeah, be the first in the, that's really exciting.
No.
Well, there was some innovative work done, particularly on the license agreements, and
Yes.
some difficult things came up during
No, that's
this.
fantastic. I think it's great to be, groundbreaking.
Well, it is.
Pioneer.
It's great to be innovators.
Innovators.
It's scary at the same time. And I
It
just
is,
would like to
it is.
say, we appreciate
Yes,
everybody's
thank you for all the work,
efforts.
and
No,
thanks to
thank you,
Thanks
thank
to
you.
Keenan
This
Bean
is
too.
very
They did a lot.
exciting.
Being a trendsetter and hoping the trend sets.
That's right.
That's
Well,
one of the
setting an
issues.
example for our kids, this is an example for our
Right.
kids, that this is the way of the future. We can't keep with the responsive views. It just doesn't work.
Okay, moving along.
Our next update is I've asked Alice to share some ongoing conversations with regard to enrichment. We have had, I know, a long history of an enrichment/gifted and talented program. I know the board had to make some very difficult financial decisions a number of years ago, and we have heard and experienced with the increased rigor of the New York State assessment, the questions around the validity of it because of the Common Core, as well as the number of test refusals. I've asked Alice to lead a committee of teachers and community members, including one of our own board members, around what the opportunities and criteria are in order to participate, who and where that can be provided, and an update on what our next steps are in terms of a policy. So, I'll turn it over to Alice.
Okay. Given that we know that our brightest kids need to have other opportunities at some point in the day, we continue to support an enrichment/gifted program. Although it's really come under the chopping block over the years. We used to have a teacher of the gifted in each building, and now we have one teacher who's working with kids in all 3 buildings. When we had one in each building, all children were enriched, and the children who were in the top scorers on an assessment for the gifted were pulled out for Horizons. And they were pulled out for a combination of reading and/or math, and if they got reading and math, they also did independent research. So Jess, you probably remember that. It used to start in 2nd grade with enrichment, and the pullout was 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. The enrichment, push enrichment was 2nd through 4th, feeling that DARE was another opportunity in 5th grade, and there's just so much you can fit into a day. Exactly. So that was the beauty of a cushy budget. But those days are long past. We're about 5 years into having only one teacher of the gifted. Another place that we lost staffing for working with top kids was there's just so much up. So far we can spread our middle school teachers to provide the enriched English that they used to provide in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. We just don't have the staff for it. The feeling, though, of the teachers was with the increased rigor in the Common Core, there were ways to challenge kids all day long, and it certainly is challenging. And looking at our teachers, as I say that, we're not lacking challenge with the Common Core. That being said, I taught gifted. You know, I have had a lot to do with this population over time, and I do know that these kids need to be together for some part of the day, or some part of the week, where they can have their wacky ideas and share them with each other and move quickly. I was in a class in the latest class at Furnace Woods today, watching them so engaged working with rapping. And they couldn't believe it when the period was over. And, you know, they were just so interested and engaged. And we need to keep that going. And so far we can. We still have a teacher of Horizons. Now the screening has gotten tricky, because we used to use the screener and then we couldn't use it for many years because people have gotten a hold of it. So that's, you know, kind of makes it invalid if you might take it a few times.
You mean they were tutoring their kids at
Yeah,
home?
pretty much.
They were cheating.
The
The word is cheating.
Test prep.
Okay.
Test prep.
Test
Oh,
Right, right.
parent test prep.
Anyway, because the New York State assessment was so hard and it was so difficult to get a level 4, and it was looking for academic excellence. Is it a test of giftedness? No. So we're proposing, and through our committee, to go back to using a screening assessment for the gifted. It's listed there, but I don't feel like publicizing it for the world. And it's an assessment truly of gifted, academic gifted. It doesn't, you know, just for gifts in the arts or
What's the difference between gifted and smart?
Oh, great question. We talk about bright versus gifted all the time. If you think about a truly gifted person, child,
2%.
it's 2 to 5% of the population.
2%.
These are the kids who sit down with an encyclopedia, and 2 hours later, where are they? Well, they found something interesting, and they found something else interesting, and they found something else interesting. You know, that's the kind of behavior that a gifted child would do. Children don't develop evenly, so an academically gifted child can be kind of socially immature or socially awkward. You know, it's all range of. We have lots of kids who are bright, who are teacher pleasers. They do everything they can to do what's right in their class. But that doesn't mean that they're having those really quick and fast thoughts and, you know, thinking in different ways and wanting to save the world. We don't see truly gifted kids very frequently. And very infrequently. And what's interesting, our teacher of the gifted, and it's Blair Haviland, she knows who they are in kindergarten. You know, she keeps an eye. She talks to teachers. Teachers come to her and say, you know what.
You can see them right at an early age.
But sometimes it's quiet. And sometimes we have to dig a little deeper because very smart children sometimes don't want to raise their hands all the time because, you know, kids start to understand that, you know, oh, it's Julie, she always has the answer.
But you know them. They're just,
Yeah.
it's
If you
really
understand bright
better.
versus
That's
gifted,
right.
there's lots that can be read, and I can bring that to you. If you know, there are pages that you can read that describe bright
Well,
as
this
gifted.
is adequate. I just was curious.
Yeah, no, there's a difference. Early reading is a sign, but it's not always. It can be that, you know, you've been taught phonics at home to death and you can decode, but by third grade you're on a level with everyone else. So early reading is not necessarily. When it just happens automatically, it might be. Having a really advanced sense of humor can be a sign of giftedness because they get the quirks, they get the, you know, the nuance. Having tremendous sense of social justice can be a part of it. It's interesting, but it's important that we provide some time for these kids to be together. So that's why we've got, you know, the horizons that we have starting in 4th grade, and we've got the tiered instruction in the 6th grade and 7th and 8th grade. There are opportunities in math, and even though it's just math, the kids are together talking to each other in that class. And then when they get to high school, there's every single opportunity that you could ever imagine for kids to fly. And that's appropriate because at that point, you know, it's the kids really pushing themselves.
So we need to develop a policy once it sounds like in policy committee, once this is.
We have a policy.
We have a policy, but we don't have the guidelines laid out.
Right.
Well, because they're not set.
Right, but you know, as
So
the
that's what we've talked
team
about,
back and
that's what-
forth, and the change is so constant, how frequently do you want to revise this policy?
Right.
Well, we need guidelines so parents
Of course.
know, I think.
Who writes the regulations? We write policy, but
We-
the
Committees of,
We do, and that's really the issue. Is I think what we have talked about as a policy committee is a level of predictability for families to know what does my child need to know or be able to do, or what are some of the performance indicators, regardless of cut point in a state test or so on and so forth. And I think what has happened is the reliability, really, of the validity of the state assessment has called into question that instrument being used as an indicator. And so we have struggled, I think, for the last maybe 18 months in what should the indicator be? Should there be a formal assessment, and we let parents know that if you want to be a part of this program, we need to get a state nine. We need to have some other data on your child that's not a state test or not teacher observation, and use that as part of the criteria.
And how many children we're even talking about in the first place?
very good.
2 to 5. Yeah,
Very good.
Yeah.
It's 2%.
Let's do 2%. But I think I'm glad we're having this discussion. I
That's
think,
an average 2%.
well, it may be, yeah.
And you know, we serve more than that,
Right.
but we're not serving, you know, the kids generally thrive in that program. It's not
We
really
have
over.
one, our board member here
Was
was
it Horizons?
in Horizons.
But I think it's important to note also that these are students who can have very significant needs, and I think that gets lost sometimes. That there can be special education needs, there can be ESL needs, and the U.S. Department of Education has just made it clear, again, in April just of this year, that children who are gifted can have special education needs, and this is a population that's often overlooked for that.
Doubly gifted.
Yeah, I call it risk because I see a lot of kids who just don't fit in and aren't understood and can't go to school or can't, so I think we have to pay attention to that in the district.
Absolutely. And I have to say proudly that, our Horizons program, we do have children who are double gifted. We pay very special attention to all our kids. I'd also like to assure parents that we had a very strange testing year this year. And no matter what, we're not only using state assessments for anything, because we had almost a quarter of our kids opt out. And who knows, where they would have scored. And also, I can imagine that if you're a fourth grader sitting in a class with a quarter or to a third of your classmates somewhere else, you're not going to be taking that test as seriously as you might have been if everybody is sitting there plugging away.
Not only that, the validity of the test hasn't even been shown. So,
Even in the best
you
of
know,
circumstances.
in the best
Yeah.
of circumstances.
Well,
Right.
the kids haven't been taught it yet. I mean, they've been taught, but it's new. It's so new, the teachers haven't had enough training. So it's,
Go down that road though, at one point we used to use particularly for that issue during the Bloomberg years, there was some complaints about the cut points and the volatility of the cut points.
Well, that's why you
use the CTP4.
But we
That's why
can't
we
give our
went to
kids
these other
another
things,
test.
but now we're
But now they're
not doing.
manipulated too,
But we can't give our kids another test. We can't. I mean, they're tested.
No, they're tested out.
They're tested out.
Kids are kids.
So you can
and,
use the
you
CTP4 is another week of a battery of tests.
So where do we get valid?
We have this
Not
assessment.
telling.
So what we're planning on doing is looking at
On no basis.
the assessment data we use for everyone, which is the iReady data,
Mm-hmm.
and the teacher recommendation, and then screening from that list.
And then you look at
Narrow.
you look at classroom performance, you look at teacher recommendations, you can look at parent
Right.
perspectives. There's a
Right.
rubric.
Will we get information from the New York State tests? Some. But
We're not
we
relying
were
on
getting
it
to a level of
300%.
stress last year where kids were a point or two away from being a 4, and parents very nervous about their child remaining in the Horizons program, and that's not the intent. The intent isn't for families to petition a point or two on a state assessment.
No, and it's not
There's
fair.
a bigger picture here, and that's
right,
what.
right. And yet, when you've got children struggling in class, as parents think they need to be in a gifted program, that doesn't serve them well.
No.
They're missing the primary instruction when they can't afford it.
And do we still work with CQY? Or is that
Oh,
Center for Talented Youth not anymore?
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so
It's kind of up to the parents to initiate.
Right.
Parents initiate the process, and then teachers
take
can.
the SATs and send them.
Yeah, then teachers can
That
work
was
on the.
That's pretty crazy. And do better than a lot.
that was
of
an
us.
eye-opener.
Teachers can modify the curriculum, if needed.
Yes.
Based on those assessments.
Gotcha.
Do we still do the chess master program?
Yes. Yes.
It's right there.
Yes.
Well, no,
And there was
I
some
saw that.
conversation if that's enrichment. Of course it's enrichment. It's not part of the.
Well, no, I mean, there was conversation at BV the other night about
Right.
offering chess master to all.
But they're now, it's not
Is
going to
BB
be.
offering chess?
No, they had to,
they're-
they had, but
It's PTA sponsored and
right.
the PTA decided not to
PTA
sponsor it anymore. I
Correct.
just heard that.
I
this-
thought that they were.
no, they stopped this
Not
year.
this year.
Well, that's
That's too
unfortunate.
bad, yeah, we have to. find out.
Does the school get a better rate than the PTAs?
No.
No, because they're not even using the same people.
I mean, we just
Frank
they're
G
doing
is
some
this one
building
person.
improvements, so they decided
Right.
to use their
Kids
funds
have
for
chess.
that rather than the chess program.
Older kids go down and volunteer once a week to. Why not?
Yeah, that
Well,
sounds like
that's
a
a
good
good-
activity for the Math Honor
Yeah.
Society.
We have some of our high school kids who like to play chess come down once a week and play chess with the little kids.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
Well, it was done originally. I know when I was teaching, somebody came into the classroom and initiated instruction with all of the children in the classroom. And then it was offered at lunchtime for those children that wanted to continue to play. They would play at lunchtime. And some schools, I don't know if it was BV or Furnace Woods, offered it after school in the after-school academy. And that's how children who wanted to further play and improve their skills did that. Now, also, the Math Honor Society children would come down and, they worked on math enrichment with kids. But some kids that were extraordinary in chess also had that opportunity to play with the high school students who
And
came
we
down.
used to have a direct feed into, I know because I had done it, but we had a direct feed into a chess league in Peekskill, a youth chess league in Peekskill, and then also one at what used to be the teen center at Cortland Town Center, which was like a chess club, and that was a direct feed, and that was really cool.
Well, I think that's something that maybe,
It was-
if it's
it was
there
It
as
was
part
a
of
cool time.
part of enrichment, that maybe we could further
Yeah.
investigate.
This
Because
is-
I think it
this chart is-
benefits all children.
Right, I was going to say this chart's a little bit of a mishmash because the chess program is open to everybody. Anybody can do the chess program, whereas
Right.
the pull-out enrichment kids are
Well, the
selected
pull-out-
for it. The pull-out, I'm just talking,
Right,
right, the
but-
pull-out kids are selected for the chess open to everybody. So there are some things in here that are good enrichment, but not necessarily, we're not saying the chess is designated for the select, or
And-
not even select, but, you know.
Shouldn't be.
No,
Now, when you
right.
get to high school and kids opt into honors classes and AP classes if they want to work that hard, we're proud
Right,
of that.
chess is for everybody.
So it's not only that, you have to prove yourself.
That's great.
Yeah, but everyone has the opportunity.
I think it's okay that it's a mishmash.
I have a comment and a question. I read a column one time that said that one of the reasons the United States won World War II was because the generals played poker and the Germans played chess. Because there's a random element to poker and reading other people. Now I don't want to promote that we play, but we teach our
Really good poker players are smart.
That's kind
They're
of what,
mathematics.
looking at chess. I mean, when I was a kid,
Come on now.
in my family, when we were kids, we played cards, Crazy Eights. We also played dominoes.
Peanut.
A lot of counting games and things like that.
Right.
Chess is not the only
Absolutely.
route to getting like little kids to play dominoes. That's you know your numbers and you do it so you can play with your older cousins.
And I think kids are doing that lesson.
Kids are doing
That's
that.
sadly because
Kids are doing all of those games in classrooms, and you'd be impressed. Okay.
All right.
Okay, so
Here
anyway,
we go.
thank you.
Thank you very much to everybody who worked on this. We sincerely appreciate the time and effort put into it, and thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
Moving on, Charles. Government efficiency plan.
So this is a transition from a comment that Charles made during committee reports. We are on the hook through the governor of finding efficiencies with other municipalities. As Charles said, 1% of your budget means taxpayers get a rebate check. So we'd like to just give you a brief update on some of our conceptual thoughts, and we'll certainly bring back to you as those concepts start to solidify. But we're working with the town of Cortland and some neighboring school districts because we are all in this together, a way of trying to achieve this 1%. And as much as we would like to say, we're not going to do it, this is a crazy mandate, our respective communities are somewhat relying on us because there is some money floating out there that if we can be more efficient and partner and find opportunities to collaborate, there is a financial benefit to our taxpayers, and it's our duty to make sure we're exercising those opportunities. So I'll let it go.
It's a 1%.
Increase over what we're currently doing. So the redistricts are estimating that we're already doing 15%
Yes.
or more.
Yeah, so it's taking your current collaboration and finding more efficiency. So I'll let Enrique talk about what we're trying to achieve, and we'll bring back more details, but wanted to get this on your radar.
The first comment is that this is by school district, or school districts can do it together. So we are talking to Proton. Joe is talking to the superintendent there. I'm talking to the assistant superintendent there. We have a lot of efficiencies in common. We share transportation to private parochial, special ed. Just to give you an example, in 12-13, that it's the first year that we need to show, we saved $170,000 by having Proton transport several of our kids, either special ed or private and parochial, to their own school. In 13-14, that was $148,000, and this year is about also $148,000. Because of the situation that we've been since 2010, we've got a lot of we've made a lot of savings by being very efficient. So For us, we need to cut $400,000 per year, starting in the year 12-13, just without giving you much because we haven't finished. In the year 12-13, we have 522,000, 13-14, 466, 14-15, 1,135,000. So we've been doing our job of being more efficient, sharing transportation, sharing different costs with the town, with other schools. So that's the idea. The idea is that we have to have this ready and sent to the controller's office by June 1st. So we are in good shape. The only problem is that there's very little information. So, for example, a big portion of our savings was because with our teachers' contracts, we were below the tribal for a couple of years. Nowhere it says, yes, we'll take that into account as savings. I did my due diligence, I asked Questar, and Questar said, for what we understand, yes. The health insurance, for example, we're saving this year $247,000, next year $479,000, and again, this is the consortium that is giving us the numbers, and they are saying we think this is this will be approved, but no one knows. So even though we only need for about $400,000 a year, I'm going to put $1,000,001 for 14-15. So pick and choose. You don't like this one, then choose the other one. And that's what everyone is saying. Is saying and doing. I feel comfortable that these are really savings and efficiencies, but it's talking to the government. When you talk to the government, you don't know what they are thinking compared to. So that's all in 2 weeks, because we have to do it by June 1st. I'll give you a final presentation with Proton on how much and what we're planning to submit.
Thank you.
Reorg meeting date discussion. So we are in the process of finalizing at least our reorg meeting. It can't happen before July 1st. We have committed to board meetings on Wednesdays, and we tentatively scheduled our first board meeting in July to be, well, we have Wednesday, July 1st is a Wednesday, and Wednesday, July 8th is a Wednesday.
We can't make July 1st.
We have a number of people that can't make July 1st. We have, I can't make July 8th because of a workshop, a conference.
So July 6th.
So we're trying to figure out what dates we are available to begin our reorg meeting, where you will approve some standard appointments that the law dictates. You'll have a conversation around board leadership, as well as set the dates of our future board meetings, but we're pretty good and locked into every other Wednesday. So,
July 6th or 7th.
No, we're not writing out. What about the 15th? That's Wednesday.
I think it has to be
I
done.
think
I think it
that's
has to
long.
be within
It
the
has
first.
to be within a
Oh.
certain number of days after the budget vote. So we're thinking about July 6th or July 7th.
I think July 7th better.
Yeah,
I don't
people
know.
may take a long weekend,
Yeah.
the 4th of July weekend, so the
I
7th
like
would
the
probably.
7th. Yeah, the 7th is not.
Okay, so July 7th?
I'm in Virginia. Yeah, it would be for national, so it would be for about 5 days.
Oh, I have an eye exam that
we certainly can keep it the 8th.
You're You won't be here.
I won't be here,
No,
but if you
no,
wanted to
can't
do.
that. You have to be here.
Well, I know, I'm taking oath and all of those sort
All
of
right, what
things.
about
so-
July 9th then?
What about
Will
the
you be
9th?
back?
8th and 9th. 8th, 9th, and 10th in the morning.
The 7th is fine, I was so.
The 7th is good.
I think it's fine.
Okay, so let's tentatively put down July 7th.
We'll do a video conference for you, Laura.
Yeah, I just don't know the dates of my nationals yet.
Okay.
They're not set.
Okay, so tentatively we'll do July 7th.
Is that okay with Mary Pat?
What
I
time?
believe she said she was.
Do we have to do it at night or can we do it?
No, I think
I have to do it at night.
Did work.
And you have an eye exam during the day, Charles.
That's right, Charles. We want you to be able to see by the time you come to the meeting.
Ranks there, come on.
So, yes. We'll decide time later, but for now, we'll put down July 7th. So if everybody could please put that in their calendars.
Got it.
Okay. On May 8th, this Friday evening, Hendrick Hudson Education Association has their retirement dinner. May 10th is Happy Mother's Day to everybody in our audience. May 19th, very important, is our budget vote. We're voting for 2 trustees who are currently serving on the board. We're voting for our transportation, library. It's also the 10-year celebration, and it's on a Tuesday night, our board meeting. May 16th is a meet and greet at Dunkin' Donuts. So please come out if you have any questions for our Board of Education people who will be there, or for our superintendent. I think that is it. So can I please have a motion? Any new business?
Yeah.
I just want to say to Charles, don't forget your USL comment. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I think we should.
Well, okay.
You know,
New
save it for
business.
Okay, could you talk, I have 2 things then.
Talk about ESL. I want to talk a little bit about an alternative to suspension program. I think we need to discuss that and get it on the
I
agenda.
think we're going to talk about that at our summer.
We need to talk about it. Does everybody feel that we need to head in that direction? I talked to James Harrison, who's the assistant superintendent at BOCES. They have a program called Back on Track, and they do, in combination with teaching and counseling and different things. Lynn Rafali did a presentation at SEPTA, and unprompted, I asked her a question about it. And she's done programs like that in other districts. It's a matter of freeing up time and money for it. So there are some good alternatives out there for these kids who need structure and supervision and teaching when they're out of the building. So I think we need to make it a priority going
We
forward.
also need to look at the whole process.
I think that,
As was brought up tonight. Every crime, every punishment doesn't fit the crime, and we're pigeonholing kids into things, and we need to be able to look at the individual, look at what happened, and be able to make decisions, whether it's through a committee or not. But just to say, because you did this offense is in this parameters here, you are that. Something doesn't always fit, and I think we have to look at these as kids, and they make mistakes. And they need us to have a little faith in them that they're going to get themselves back on track. So suspending someone for 8 weeks, 10 weeks, to me, is just basically throwing them to the curb. And it's not,
Well,
depending on what it is. If it's a repeat person, but I think we need to be able to have some sort of leeway to make decisions without being so black and white. I think there has to be
and
some-
I think that this would be an excellent thing that, personally, I would like to see us have a work session on this. I don't think talking at just a singular board meeting is going to be enough time to accomplish all of this, which is why I said, I think we have to have some sort of plan in place going forward for either a working board meeting to be able to discuss this, or for a summer retreat, to be able to really fully, engage in this topic and have enough
spend
time.
more than 15 minutes. in the
Yeah, we
morning.
can't. We just can't keep
So
doing
important to the
that.
kids.
I'd even suggest we should invite some of our legal counsel from Keenan Bean, because I think I can tell you in my experience here, presiding over 99% of the superintendent's hearings, I'd say 99% of those hearings get to a level of consulting with our law firm around a number of issues, not just the proceeding, but background information or the interview process of students or how evidence comes about, those sort of things. They're very litigious, and I know a while ago our law firm essentially scripted out how those proceedings should go so they comply with the law, and it's tough. And I'm not responding personally. It's hard when you get pigeonholed and you feel like you don't have flexibility. And I think a program like Back on Track that Lynn and I have talked about, as well as Jim Mackin, maybe it's not a suspension is what happens, but it's an alternative placement for a short or longer period of time to address some needs or emerging issues that kids have.
Different interventions in there.
Yes.
Right, 'cause this isn't just our district, it's a
Yeah.
countywide, it's a national problem, and I think if we're become leaders in it and can develop a
It's like
program.
solar energy.
Yeah, it's like, because it's disastrous when you take a child at risk and take them out of school, you're just creating a
You're
cycle.
just basically putting
Well, if you
Yeah.
don't have anything in
Right,
place for
You're not giving them
them,
the structure
you know,
that they need.
Right, right.
absolutely. And as I said, I don't think it's something that can be, discussed, in a very short amount of time. I think we've got enough people. Well, I think.
Now, how long would it take to put a program into place? Could we get something in, once we discuss it, could we get it in place for next year? Or is it 2 years out? Or
Well, there are a couple things. There's a BOCES, essentially a BOCES tuitioned program where a number of districts on that side of our region, instead of local districts paying for a tutor, they would transport their students who are suspended to this program, and I believe it's a per day or a per week fee that the district incurs. But there, for example, may be mental health counseling. There may be a math and a humanities tutor, a substance abuse counselor if it, is an issue that way. Because right now, without a program like that, we have a come back to school, or you need to learn your lesson a little bit longer, and you get boxed in. So I think depending on the route we go, we could turn something around. We'd also have to discuss what the financial impact is, but I know our BOCES, Putnam Northern Westchester, has a program that districts on the eastern side participate in, and Lynn went to it, and I believe Jim Mackin did as well.
So could they possibly be a part of our discussion, since they've actually experienced the program and, maybe be able
and
to discuss with us?
It may be a two-part conversation. First is sort of the process of discipline, suspensions, legality, all of those things. And the second piece is what are we going to do about it?
Right.
That'd be great.
I think
a two-part
I
conversation.
think it's a very important topic, and
Absolutely.
you certainly see the impact that it has on parents as well as students, and we've talked about it, and I think we have to start to establish some sort of resolution to the problem. It can't just be throw them out of school and say that's it, we're done. I think there's many good things that could come from a whole discussion with us.
Well, student advocacy did a whole seminar on it this spring.
Yep.
There's a lot of groups that are looking at this issue because it's
It's a
detrimental to
major
learning.
problem in the county and the state.
Yep.
Yeah, we can do that.
So if we did that, could we have possibly something in place for September?
We could. We could.
And maybe we can bring someone from BOCES who does it too and talk to
Well,
them.
yeah, I think we need a whole group of people. That's why I don't want to rush it. I really think we need the time to be able to ask our questions and have
And
answers
then
provided.
come back with some rebuttals and some different thoughts
Right.
after we do it. So
Right.
that's a different-
Because I'm sure there's other things out there that, I just personally want to take the time to investigate to make sure that, if we're setting up a new program for our students like this, it shouldn't be something taken lightly, just as the whole process of suspension isn't taken lightly.
This could directly impact on our goal of increasing student achievement and increasing graduation rate in particular, because I know Jim has talked in the past about a good proportion of the kids that don't graduate have suspension issues or discipline issues. So
Well, and hopefully we could have a lot of people involved, not just.
Yeah, we'll work on
it's a
that. It's a
discussion.
great idea.
thank you.
Anything else, Charles?
Who's going to have Dr. Gottlieb speak about ESL requirements.
I think
Next
it's
time.
I'm ready to go home.
Just don't forget next time.
Wait, I had one thing. I'm going to keep it very brief, but I think as a board, we need to be very well educated in the legislation that's going on with Como and how it's affecting your teachers, your principals, and what can actually happen to your school. We did a big presentation about APPR, and I know our teacher's contract is coming up, and I'm not going to go through it. I'm going to send it to you. But we really need to know what could happen. And it has to do with if a teacher is rated ineffective, everybody knows that tenure has now been moved to 4 years. This is what happened. New York State is the only state in the union where the governor is allowed to include other stuff in the state budget. And he threw in his education because he's pissed off that the teachers union did not support him and they supported Teach Out instead of Cuomo. So we all know he's a bully and he's doing this stuff because he is a bully and he wants to get his way. And he's holding money against school districts. And the legislation that came out is not written by educators whatsoever. It's some brand new legal students who are writing this stuff, just like Pearson is hiring non-educators to grade test scores. We're all aware of that, right? That these people who need a job, please come grade our children's tests. So I think we all really need to be educated about what could happen to our school and to your staff if everything goes according to his plan. Hopefully you are all writing into New York Eval, because right now that's up. Right now there's a period where we can, discuss teacher evaluation. And quite frankly, we've been evaluating teachers for a good long time. And our principals are actually very good at it, and there's a whole lot going on. And it's more like the system. I'm going to say it, and teachers are going to get mad. We know who the bad teachers are. And there has to be a better way to remove. I said that very rudely, and I shouldn't have said it like that. But the system in place is more at fault than evaluating a teacher.
Yeah.
Joe knows how to observe teachers. I observe. My principal observed. We all do it. So please make sure you go. I'm going to send all this information to you. But what could happen to your district if you are a failing school is very, very scary. Very scary.
And I usually say it's the right solution for the wrong problem. That the issues around fixing the profession are oftentimes not about the exchange between teacher and children. It's about other issues. So it was, Cuomo long ago heard the cry from school boards and the Superintendent's Association, and even the teachers union say we need a way to clean up our profession. And he chose to go down the path of evaluation and test scores as opposed to teacher conduct or other behavioral avenues, and that's even more frustrating.
What's very frustrating is that he says to parents, why aren't your kids taking the test? They're meaningless. Really? My career is based on the life of a 13-year-old. That's my career, is based on the decision of a 13-year-old. They're crazy from 13 to 18. Right? And right? It's crazy. So I'm going to send it to you. Please be aware of what's going on. Okay? It's very funny that I'm going to say about the Common Core. It's like going to a doctor. Something's wrong with you. You go to a doctor. That's this testing, and the results mean absolutely nothing to us. So you go to a doctor, and you get 50 tests done. And you go back to when you go to the doctor, and then you go back to the doctor, and he gives you all the results. But you go to the doctor for your results, and the doctor says, I'm not going to have your results for 3 months. You go back in 3 months, and that doctor's not there anymore. That's what Common Core is like right now. That's what this testing is like. And if you know me, I give tests all the time. And I miss the spelling tests, I miss the vocabulary tests, all the stuff that actually has meaning to it. We have chapter tests and all that kind of stuff, so don't think I'm against testing because you ask my kids, and I'm like, oh my God. But these tests don't tell us anything. And these tests mean nothing for a kid, nothing, and it means everything for a teacher, and it's a shame. So I'm going to send you all the information. Hopefully you read it.
But we've been saying the same thing about New York State testing for a long time. That's why we picked up on the CTEP and the other programs. That
The results come back too long, too far.
They don't help us do anything.
They're not.
You can't plan.
predictive.
You can't plan. You can't inform instruction.
Nothing.
Your current teachers have no immediate
Say.
benefit of how well did we do. Therefore, as a school district, it's difficult, if not possible, to plan relevant staff development for teachers or to address any curriculum gaps because you get the data back so late, and then the state's not even revealing an item analysis or. It's just a different priority. There's a different angle.
But Westput is doing, they sent us a thing today about this. There's a day-long seminar tomorrow on the evaluation and pieces, and they have a letter that we can send out to our districts. I don't know if we want to post that or share it with the advocacy group about changing the testing.
They have it.
Do they?
Advocacy.
Okay.
And I think most of us here are pretty well informed on the new APPR process already. But if you want more information, NYSSBA also did a very nice webinar a few weeks ago. It's about 45 minutes long. He gave the piece on APPR, and with our membership, it's free to go and view those past webinars. And you can fast forward the parts that you don't want. They don't address testing. They specifically address the APPR process and consequences to the various assessments of the teachers. It was very good.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Anybody
you.
else? Okay, can I
You
have...
have some more things to go over with us?
Wait,
There's always next
For
time.
anybody who doesn't recognize, this is Enrique.
2017-2018 budget right first?
Okay, I'm going to do the
Let's
trail
go.
test. Can I please have a motion?
Yes.
Thank you.
No.
Thank you. Night, everybody.
Good night.